communities through conscious action by the youth. As an architect, urban planner, policymaker, and designer, she has lived in many countries learning about rural communities, their design sensibilities, and their relevance in current climate action conversations. She initiated the Nonurban Foundation, a youth-led non-profit that focuses on developing entrepreneurship models for rural tribal products and designs that have traversed common sense, technique, and for many years retained a sensible climate-conscious process from which the world can learn. She is also the youngest member of the State Planning Commission of Tamilnadu, India. She works with the Education Planning Committee on representing architecture and design in new educational institutions in the state. Currently pursuing a PhD in planning and policy at the Politecnico di Milano, Milan, Thein is working on her doctoral thesis that showcases the benefits of delegitimizing and decoupling reliance of the urban by shifting adequate resources towards community entrepreneurship and actualizing successful brands around the rural-born ideas and skills. May we now have Thein on stage, please.
So architect is probably one of the last things I would call myself, because I think I learned a lot of tools about how to approach places, people, through my education in architecture. But as a planner, as a researcher, my job keeps bringing me back to very spatial and contextual learnings that I learned while becoming an architect. So I'm currently working as an entrepreneur and as a founder of a non-profit called the Nonurban Foundation, which is what I'm here to talk about. So the first thing is, it's not going to be like any of the presentations we've had here. Okay. Okay. Ingidana button. Okay, got it. So it's, even as a student, everything I did was sketch or do site work when recording the dimensions of old buildings, or photo documenting, or coding. I still remember some of my professors are here. I went for my Viva with a bunch of code, and then they said, Enama, what is this? How is this architecture? So, but my trajectory has been like this, so I hope it's not very surprising for you, in the sense that we all see it as just a thought that is realized in space, and in space I mean non-urban spaces, because as the first presentation goes, it's untamed, it's happening in in a scale that's not conceivable by any of us, the urbanization I'm talking about. So as the concept goes, together for tomorrow, towards tomorrow, I think we are leaving a bunch of people behind without the access to technology, without the knowledge that we need to make it in the urban or anywhere else in the world. So I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create social linkages between these groups of people, the rural areas, any idea you might have as an architect, as anybody in this world, a couple of youngsters, and institutions that needs to be accessed to make these ideas happen. So we are a COVID organization. We formed during COVID. It's a completely, entirely remote organization. There are architects, there are designers, there are creative writers, engineers, you name it, any profession, there's someone here in Nonurban Foundation. And we all work together completely online to work all over the world to work with non-urban communities. Now, there are 3 ways I can take this presentation, but I'm going to kind of move past the first and the second one, and I'm going to ask you to pretend that it is really, really important to work on these non-urban areas, and that we are very passionate about these non-urban spaces. I'm going to focus it much more on what we are doing as actions, and how we developed a framework and the kind of impact they've had on us and us having on them, and the learnings that we've had. We have 2 ways of how we did this. One was very action-driven, and another one very education-driven. It was not a big plan. We didn't have a great plan at the beginning. We just went with it. We ran it by the year and started off with education-driven policies where we went to institutions, universities, tapped into our networks, and ran competitions, workshops, and basically to kind of how to approach a community. And by that I mean asset mapping, gap analysis, and to understand what spheres of influence is for any sort of product that's been created or any sort of skill or technology a particular non-urban space has. So that gave us the boost, the encouragement to kind of take it to real life scenarios, through which we started off. Okay, we said, okay, is there any other organization that already does this? And pleasantly learned of ITCOT that does DPR for any projects, almost all government projects. And we reached out to them and we said, we're interested, we have the time and resource to give you, do you need any help? And that kind of led us to very exciting opportunities for us to meet people more so than anything else. Then within the Tamil Nadu sector, we learned the relevant departments we needed to reach out to and the data that we needed to get to. And then finally, on ground, we approached the non-urban communities. In the first one, this was the first project, which was the palm leaf weaving in Paravirkadu. It was set up many, many years ago, and about 70 years ago, completely women, where about 2,000 women were weaving within their houses, and they were doing quite a good job. They wove the palm baskets, and it just literally took us 1 or 2 days to go there and realize that there's so much that can be done, but it was trouble with conflicts, local conflicts, religious, social, all other conflicts. And we asked them, so what do they need? And then all we did was speak to the panchayat for 1 day and decided they have something as primitive for now, as Assembly 9 has not reached them. They could figure it out in a more centralize some of their processes and do it together. That kind of told us, okay, we don't need complex ideas, we don't need to come up with great ideas, we need to just execute simple ideas. And we're very grateful that was the first project that we did. The second one was natural fiber weaving in Anakaputtur, where 500 women work with they have one skill, which is fiber extraction, and they create one product, which is natural sustainable fabrics. I'm going to go into the depth of it at one point. I just want to choose one or two. We also work with the stone carving artisans from Mahabalipuram, where there are more and more artisans every other day, and they represent they'll all come from one institution that's there in Mahabalipuram, and they form this very unique community that has been going on pretty silently behind Chennai for many, many years. Coir weaving in Mannargudi, organic forest produce in Javada Hills, fishing in Kovalam, and regenerative farming, or as you call it, natural farming in Thein, which is again made by some returned migrant families who came back after COVID and decided we are going to take up farming. So this is all some of the things that are happening that we learned by case studying them, kind of, and learned that we don't even need a proof of concept. All these people in the order that is mentioned here have achieved something that the other group aspires to. So they just have to learn from each other in the sense, and we weren't even needed at all, to be honest. So we realized that this is pretty much a natural timeline of these rural enterprises. They first struggle with forming an organization, mechanization and upskill, marketing and sales, branding, someone to invest in them, and then how to monitor that investment and that growth, and finally reach an actualization position. Now, this does not happen how it happens in urban enterprises, because you don't pre-think all of these things in a rural entrepreneurship. It happens very organically, and what we do now is to move them, trudge them along to the next step until they can reach that actualization point. Now, once we declare that framework, we brought together some policymakers. As you can see, that's economist Charanjan, who is the current vice chairman of State Planning Commission, senior most IS officer S. Narayan, and a bunch of other great people who came and told us, oh, this is a great idea, but there's so many rural places, there's very, very many contextual issues, so how are we going to take it forward? So that has been something that we are working towards. It's called FAIR. It's called the Framework for Autonomous Investments in Rural Areas, which really just focuses on taking information from them, about what it is that they do and how much productivity that they have, what are their social impacts if they're using sustainable fabrics, in the case of Anagaputur, and tools and machinery, do they have the production capacity to scale up, and just learn about them and maybe create a platform at which a government can access, a user can access, an investor can access a rural business. In this, some of the interventions in the last year, I just want to give one or two detailed examples. So in the case of Anagaputur, that was assumed that lack of machinery was the biggest problem, that they were not able to scale up. But actually, when we worked with them, we realized that they're not even using 2% of their existing production capacity. Because of this one particular thing, there was the process that had to be done manually. It's the fiber extraction process, where they make fiber out of a banana, let's say, and it paid 25 rupees for women. Women usually do that a day. So in a day, they earn 25 rupees for 4 hours or 5 hours of working. Now, this is very hard to understand for people like us, that 25 rupees is a day job, is too less. I don't have to say that to you. So we took all the 30 women that were actually working that day, and then we gave them actually a way to be crowdfunded some money and taught them, we didn't teach them, of course, we arranged for teaching weaving, so that 25 rupees job is just not existing anymore. But then since these 30 people have moved, of course there's going to be another 30 or more women weavers who are going to come and do that part of the job. So then we decided we should reach out to some institutions as to try and make that particular process mechanized. So it's not just mechanizing everything, which as they wanted, but selective mechanization that could help create or have them have that niche of handloom and traditionally created fabric sector. So the second one is a parametric modeling project that Nonurban Foundation and La Foundation are doing, and we're trying to support them in a way that ties them back to Mahabalipuram stone artisans. The key idea is to, because our traditional Indian architecture or Hindu architecture, Dravidian architecture is mathematical, it's a very, very good base for parametric modeling, because everything belongs to a particular math of having just maybe one measurement of, like I'm, as an architecture student, I've seen this image, but I couldn't place it. So when we worked with some of the students in the traditional sculpture institution in Mahabalipuram, they said maybe we could use this in parametric modeling. So now there's been work where they learn 3D experience from scratch. They were still chiseling. They were still making stone construction. Now they're learning 3D through 3D experience, which is very, very exciting for us to work with them. And then they taught us that this whole thing can be done with just one measurement, which is the Adisthanam, and then you build it up to Padam and all the way up to the Stupi and the Karnakodur. So this is the process that's been happening, and about how everything is already been written in this book called Marabu Kattadakale, which is a treasure, and how that can maybe be the stepping stone for more uses, even in archaeological sense, as in like if you have one, just like how a forensic anthropologist would find the height of a person with just shin length. It's similar like that we could do that for a temple. So the same thing goes for Thaini farmers, where we are working with them to kind of mostly learn from them as to how they did that. They're all urbanites who moved back, retired, not retired, youngsters. It's a good bunch of social mixed demographic of people who've now taken up farming. We're learning from them to set up more communities like that. But the problem with them was that they weren't able to communicate or get together with the local farmers. So we came up with a scheme that they can have a collaboration, or rather a communication that could help them. Okay, this is the first thing I will do, this is the second, that's the third, that's the fourth, and you promise. It's a social contract that you could do, and this is that social contract but that we thought could maybe increase the trust and also take us to the place that we want, a collaborative effort between reverse migrants who have the urban knowledge, urban technique, who can do the knowledge exchange, and the traditional farmers who have the original know-how of sustainable farming. Similarly, we have Coir Craft Production, where we're working with product design. Coir has great heat and temperature retention capacity, so we are now working with them to develop a wine holder, which is again, and then maybe use some of that European connect that we all have to get them into IKEA or other similar places that a small village here in Mannargudi, which is close to Tanjore, could reach international markets. And by what I mean spheres of influence. So this is some of the things that we've been doing as part of Nonurban Foundation, and thank you for your time.